Here are some more metal bands from Italy based on your comments. I recently posted my journey into discovering Italian metal bands, but that video just scratched the surface and listed some of their most well-known bands. But this time I took your recommendations from the comments section and I chose 10 bands to check out. I will do it the same way I've done with my other videos. I will choose one album to listen to and then give you my first impressions of the album and the band. So with that being said, let me get right into it. First band I have is called Bulldozer. They are a black/speed and thrash metal band. They formed back in 1980. This is one of those bands that released a few albums in the 1980s and then made a comeback in 2011. I decided to go back to the beginning and listen to their debut album called The Day of Wrath from 1985. This was some old school thrash metal with a dark and occult nature. It reminded me of some early Slayer or Sodom. There were also elements of Venom and Motorhead, so you might even say they're one of the early examples of blackened thrash, similar to the band Megadeth that I covered in the first video. The first track was an intro track called The Exorcism, and it was just a skit, but it was actually very scary sounding. The rest of the album is filled with mostly fast-paced songs, but there were a few songs where they slowed it down the pace and sounded more like a doom band. The production is very raw, and it sounds like it was recorded in the 80s. It was not too bad. It was a good example of early blackened thrash. The next band I have is called Schizo. This is similar to the previous band Bulldozer. They were part of that first wave of Italian extreme metal bands, along with the aforementioned Bulldozer and Megadeth, which I covered in the first video. I thought this was the best of the three bands. I listened to their debut album called Mainframe Collapse. They're one of those bands that released one album in the 80s and the others many years later in the 2000s and 2010s. Here's some trivia. Chuck Schuldiner of Death was asked to join the band, but he had to decline the offer as he was too busy with his own band, Death. But as for the music, I thought it was similar to other bands that I mentioned. It's blackened thrash. I thought the songwriting was a little better. Some of the songs also had more of a punk rock edge. I like that aspect of it. I also like the album cover. It's the Grim Reaper holding a bomb in one hand and a sword in the other, and he's playing it like a violin like this. I thought that was pretty cool. But anyway, this album is filled with fast-paced blackened thrash, leaning towards death metal, but with song structures that are closer to rock and roll, if that makes sense. Anyway, I recommend this band. Next, I have Ancient Bards, and they are a symphonic power metal band. They've been active since 2006. I listened to their debut album, The Alliance of the Kings, The Black Crystal Sword, Saga Part 1 from 2010. It's a female-fronted band. It reminded me a lot of another Italian band I covered called Frozen Soul. I think the thing that distinguishes this band from the other symphonic power metal bands is that the bass guitar is much more prominent. Otherwise, they have a lot of symphonic elements in their songs. Most songs are fast-paced with rapid-fire drum beats, but they also have the occasional power ballad. This is also a type of band that has lots of virtuoso-style guitar playing throughout the album. Songs are fairly long for the most part, in the 5 to 8 minute range, so you have lots of epic melodies and big, powerful vocals. The lyrics are all fantasy-based. It appears to be a concept album, as the second part of the saga was released in 2019. I haven't listened to the second one yet, but I will eventually. This band was pretty cool. They give you what you expect, so if you like symphonic power metal, I recommend you check them out. Next is Opera IX, and they are a gothic and symphonic black metal band. I was recommend the album The Black Opera from the year 2000. This is a gothic and dark symphonic black metal opera. It's structured like an opera with a bonus cover of Bela Lugosi's Dead, originally by the band Bauhaus. This is a female-fronted band. It has lots of dark and occult themes. The music was similar to bands like Cradle of Filth. It was pretty cool, although I felt the music was very dark and evil. Some of the songs sounded more like slow doom and metal. Others were more like black metal, but there were lots of symphonic elements in all the songs. It's hard to compare to other bands. They have a pretty unique sound. This is good if you need some creepy Halloween music or if you like dark occult music. There are lots of parts with creepy pianos and organs, but there are also elements of traditional black metal, such as blast beats and tremolo picking. Other songs sounded more like traditional heavy metal. The band is different. I recommend it if you like this type of thing. Next is Strana Officina, and they are considered to be the first heavy metal band from Italy. They were formed back in 1977. I listened to their first album, which came out in 1989, called Rock and Roll Prisoners. Sounded like what I expected it to sound like. It was some traditional heavy metal. You can hear the new wave of British heavy metal influence in their sound. The album had more of a retro sound. Sounded more like an album from 1980 as opposed to an album from 1989, but it was still pretty cool. This was also one of those bands that released one album in the 80s. They took a long break and they started to release albums in the 2000s again. The album was about 40 minutes long. It had 8 songs with 4 songs on each side. It was pretty standard heavy metal. The lyrics were kind of random. One song was about war, another one was about the devil, another one was more fantasy based and mentioned a dragon, and another, the title track, about being a prisoner of rock and roll. It was a fun album, a little cheesy, but a good time. Next is Ancillotti, which consists of many of the same members of the previous band, Strana Officina. I listened to their most recent album called Hell on Earth from 2020. Some traditional heavy metal in style of a band like Judas Priest or Saxon, but the band that reminded me the most was Accept. I think that would be the best comparison. They play traditional heavy metal, but they have an edge. There are lots of big guitar riffs and powerful drums. The vocals are very big and powerful, and the music has lots of energy. Most of the rhythms are fast-paced with riffs and bordering on thrash, or even that Painkiller era Judas Priest. There were not any ballads, but a few songs sounded more like arena rock. Overall, it was pretty cool, and I may be revisiting this band. The next band I have is called Extrema, and this is a band that formed back in 1982 under the name Bulldozer, but changed to Extrema in 1986. They started out as a thrash band, but then moved towards groove metal, as they are listed in the Metal Archives. They released a few albums in the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and I listened to their latest album from 2019 called Headbanging Forever. I know they're listed as groove metal, but to me they sounded more like a combination of heavy metal and thrash. They reminded me a lot of either Armored Saint or Category 7, but that was because the singer reminded me of John Bush. Songs are very energetic and fast-paced, and they have lots of cool guitar riffs. The music can be both heavy and melodic, and there are lots of blazing solos and lead guitar work. Thought the album was decent. It didn't blow me away. Probably need to listen to the earlier stuff when they were more a thrash band, but I will check it out one day. But for now, I thought the album was just okay. The next band I have is Locus Animæ. This one was pretty difficult for me to digest because the music is very different. I don't think I've heard any other band like them before. The band is listed as gothic/post, black metal/metalcore. They are a fairly new band. They have one full-length album called Buio. The lyrics are all in Italian. Basically, this band has both male and female vocals. On the surface, they remind me of one of those bands that play a mix of pop and metalcore, such as a band like Ad Infinitum, but then they also play symphonic black metal and even a little bit of death metal. So bands like Cradle of Filth and Flesh God Apocalypse, they also came to mind while listening to this. Songs are filled with different instruments, such as electronic elements, guitars, and keyboards. Some songs have soft piano parts. Other songs go full-on black metal with screams and blast beats. They might change back to softer sound with soft and relaxing vocals, and they have some acoustic guitar parts in their songs. Some of the lighter stuff sounds more like classical music. Other songs have lots of layers of sound. I think this is a band I will have to listen to a few times to be able to enjoy it, but I will not rule them out. I think the album will be a grower. The next band I have is called Sinheresy. They are a symphonic melodic heavy metal band. They've been active since 2009. I listened to their latest album called Event Horizon. This band started out as a Nightwish cover band, but I think that although there may be a few similarities, I wouldn't compare them to Nightwish. The band has male and female vocals, much like many of the other bands I covered in the first 2 episodes. The album appears to be a concept album. Lyrics are about science fiction stuff. The guitar riffs sound like metalcore at times, and there are lots of fast rhythms. Their guitar tuning give it an electronic metalcore sound. I also noticed they use both the male and female vocals almost equally. Some of the songs are heavy, others are more melodic. They have a few power ballads on the album as well. It was not too bad. Another band that reminded me of Ad Infinitum. Most songs are structured as catchy pop songs, but with a heavier edge. It's not too bad if you like this particular style of music. I have one more band. They are called DGM. The band name stands for Diego, Gianfranco, and Maurizio, after the founding members, although the band has a completely different lineup now. I listened to their most recent album, Endless, from 2024. Sounds like the progressive rock of the 70s, but with more of a metal edge. They also have acoustic guitars and flutes that remind me of Jethro Tull, but the songs have lots of keyboards, similar to a band like Yes. The album had 8 songs. It was 56 minutes long. Songs were in the 5 to 7 minute range, with one epic of 14 minutes. Vocals were similar to bands like Dream Theater or Neil Morse. I would say in general, if you're a fan of Dream Theater, you would like the band. The band might not be as heavy, but there are lots of complex progressive guitar riffs and big keyboards. They also have a big discography. So I was going off my first impression from the album I listened to. So that's all for the second installment of Discovering New Metal Bands from Italy. As always, feel free to drop some more band names in the comments. I might make a third video, so I'm open to suggestions. I'll put a link to the other videos in my series of discovering bands from other countries, which will be 2 episodes from Greece and the first video on Italy. I'll put them all around here. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please give this video a like. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.